Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter. Of course, you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing. A massive light heavyweight fight this weekend here in the UK, which will have wider ramifications for the light heavyweight scene. You can imagine the winner of this fight demanding that they're catapulted into a position where they can get a world title shot. It's Joshua Buatsi against Craig the Spider Richards. We're going to get very technical. Unfortunately, I'm not able to bring you guys footage this week. I just haven't had the time. As you can see, this is going up late on a Friday night. I hope you guys get to see it before the fight, particularly those of you who are off to the O2 tomorrow to watch this fight. Hope you guys have a great night, and I hope the video gets to you. But we're going to get technical, and I'll try and be as clear as I can to explain exactly what it is that I believe will dictate and decide this fight, and what you guys can look out for when the fight happens. First and foremost, Joshua Buatsi, 15-0, 13 knockouts, Olympic bronze medalist. You look at it on paper and you think Craig Spider Richards, 17-2-1 with just 10 knockouts. You expect Buatsi to come through this. But it's actually a little bit more complicated than that. First and foremost, Craig Richards, early in his career, was not the same sort of fighter he is now. I saw him fight against a guy called Alan Higgins in his 8th fight. He was undefeated at the time. So was Alan Higgins. He was 12-0. This was for the Southern Area title. And I remember thinking that Alan Higgins won the fight quite clearly. And a lot of people there that night and also online felt the same thing. And there were a lot of messages to Eddie Hearn demanding a rematch. The rematch never happened. And Alan Higgins, who was 12-0, then became 12-1 and never actually fought again. So I wonder if he walked away because he was disgusted at the decision or the politics of the sport or whatever. If anyone's got any information on Alan Higgins and why he disappeared from the sport, I'd be really interested to know, what he's up to these days and stuff like that. But that was a fight I felt he lost. He then went on to fight Frank Buglioni for the British light heavyweight title 2 or 3 fights later. That was his first step up to light heavyweight. The Higgins fight was at super middleweight. And he did lose that fight. He lost by unanimous decision. So when you look at it on paper and you think, well, he should have lost to Higgins. He did lose to Buglioni. This is a guy that's going to be at domestic level. That's his sort of ceiling. He would later go on to have a draw with Chad Sugden. So again, you're assuming the same sort of thing. However, between the Buglioni and Sugden fights, he's also stopped Jake Bull and beaten and unbeaten Andre Sterling on points. Very good domestic wins. He then faced Shakan Peters after the Sugden fight, who was a very highly rated, really tall light heavyweight, who was 14-0 at the time, and he actually stopped Shakan Peters. That was a big shock. He then got the shot at Dimitri Bivol, and long-time subscribers will know I've been a fan of Bivol's for a very long time. I've got videos referring to him as a master of distance control and stuff like that. I picked him to beat Canelo Alvarez, even though I felt that he could potentially get robbed in terms of the way the fight would go. I expected him to beat Alvarez. Well, Richards gave a great account of himself. He did lose the fight quite wide, right? He lost it 9-3, 8-4. It was that sort of fight. But the rounds were competitive in the sense that they were good technical boxing matches. And so his stock rose. And since then, he's fought Marek Mataya and he got a knockout there. So you look at him, a TKO, you look at him and you think, okay, this guy's really improved. This is not the guy that fought Alan Higgins or was, completely outclassed on points by Frank Buglioni. This is a guy who has really come on heaps and bounds. And he really fancies his chances against Joshua Buatsi. That was evident through that brilliant face-off that they had. Check it out if you've not seen it. That will excite you for the fight too. Whereas with Joshua Buatsi, a lot of people feel like he's flattered to deceive because he's come with this massive amount of hype behind him based on what he did in the amateurs. And he himself says, listen, I earned that hype by doing what I did in the amateurs. Nobody just gave it to me. And he's right about that. But I think a lot of people have been overly harsh on Joshua Buatsi. I think that Marco Kalic fight really started to make people think, okay, this guy's vulnerable. And maybe they thought that he was invincible, the Terminator prior to that. And so that has sort of swayed people too much to the other side. We're going to talk about why Kalic gave him problems, why Bolotniks gave him some problems, what Richards could potentially capitalize on, and vice versa. First and foremost, Craig Richards, like I said, a very nice boxer, very, very good from range. He's got a brilliant jab. He disguises it well. He feints with it well. It's a powerful jab. And he's got a really powerful, long, straight right hand when he throws it too. He's not a knockout artist. He's got 10 knockouts of his 17 wins. But a lot of that is to do with his language style where he doesn't go through the gears and really put it on you. It's not that he doesn't carry power. In fact, Darren Barker was saying how people in gyms often talk about Craig Richards' heavy hands, even guys like Chris Billam-Smith, and he's a cruiserweight. So you know that Craig Richards can pop, but a lot of his work is at range and it's quite monotonous. He doesn't go through the gears in sort of extreme fashion. He's clearly not a finisher, but he's also quite lanky and he fights with those that hooking technique of someone who is lanky, whose biomechanics require him to swing around shots, almost like slaps. They're quite wide, the trajectories of his shots. They're not tight hooks, whereby you can really imagine him loading up and taking somebody out with those shots. And as a result of that, he's got a little bit of a weakness, in my opinion, at mid-range, because you can punch inside the arc. If he's going to have this big wide hook and you're going to throw a hook at the same time, you can come on the inside of the arc of his shot and you're going to be the one landing first. Well, Joshua Buatsi is excellent at throwing tight hooks, tight everything really. From a technical perspective, he's excellent. His hooks, his uppercut, and his best punch, in my opinion, his jab. He's very, very good technically. And what Buatsi is able to do, although they're both very good movers and they both fight quite tall, right? But Buatsi has this great ability with his jab to step to time. His timing is superb. Joshua Buatsi's timing is brilliant and he's heavy-handed with it. So what he'll do is he'll line up your face with his hand, and as you make a move to initiate, he'll just push through and make you walk onto that jab. This is a technique used a lot by Vladimir Klitschko. There is a difference though. Vlad was comparatively much taller compared to his peers and more rangy than Buatsi is. So while Vlad would land that shot by pushing off at that jab, and he'd keep the backhand close to his chin as he does it. So as he'd step in, he's stepping in and he's got that backhand by his chin. If you throw with him, this is an old Joe Louis technique. If you throw with him, he's catching your jab, your straight shot, and he's landing his, and he's really pushing through the target. And every time you're trying to come forward, you're walking onto the shot. And although it's a short jab, it's heavy and it's magnifying it. That's what Buatsi is very good at. But because Buatsi isn't as rangy as Klitschko, sometimes what you see is Buatsi get caught as he's throwing his own shots too. So as he jabs with you, you're landing also. He's got great base beneath him though, Buatsi, and it's very solid. He's got a very solid shot. So what he's basically saying is, okay, if you want to exchange with me and you land and I land, cool. You're the one that's going to start getting busted up before I do. Because one of the things that Buatsi doesn't do really is come off of that centre line particularly well. He fights quite upright and will stay on that centre line. As a result of that, what he does to bypass that fact, because he's not particularly naturally agile in the upper body from the waist. He bends his legs very well, but from the waist, he's not that agile. When he's throwing power punches, he does. As he throws that hook, even if he's not moving forward to smother his own work, he'll lean into the shot and then he'll lean back. So he's generating leverage via that movement in his hips. But he doesn't slip particularly well. He's not a guy that will bob and weave, right? He'll stay on that centre line. And what he does to counter that is use his hands to block. He's got an active guard. When he was facing Ricard's Bolotniks, you could see quite clearly that he was struggling, Buatsi, to read that wide hook to the head from Bolotniks, and it was landing flush. So he started to bring the hand higher up. And by keeping that hand higher up, the right hand, as Bolotniks would throw that wide hook after Buatsi had done his work, his hand was already in a position to block. What Bolotniks did was react to that and start to throw more left hooks underneath the elbow. So because the hands come higher, he started to dig to the body, and you could see that he was affecting Joshua Buatsi. Buatsi wasn't liking it to the body. It was clearly affecting him. Now, the other problem you have when you've got that consistent high guard and you're relying on your hands to protect without much movement behind it, is that that guard can be interacted. It can be messed with. So what you would see against Marko Kalic, for instance, he would either throw in a particular direction and then come around the guard. He'd sometimes come inside the guard. So in other words, he's making the trajectory of the bullets, the trajectory of the strikes more unpredictable. So while you're trying to use your hand and be active with it, if you can't read the trajectory, you're more likely to get caught. The other thing Kalic would do, and Bolotniks would do at times, is literally hit the guard. So if I've got my hand up here, I can punch your hand away. By the time it comes back, I've created a space where I can come inside and land again. So you can engage potentially in his guard and work off of that. Now, there's a flip side to that coin, and that is that Joshua Buatsi has a brilliant trigger counter, very, very fast. And like I said, he's very heavy-handed, and his technique is superb. So if you are going to decide to punch him and stay in range, you better be sure that a big shot's coming back. So as I try to engage with his guard to then follow up with another shot, he's going to throw something big back. Right? He's a very talented fighter, Buatsi, and he's dangerous even when you're punching him. He can lead. He can wait for you to initiate. He's very varied with his punching. So he's a dangerous dude, right? But he does give you those openings, those opportunities to land on him. That's the point I'm making here. And Kalic did hurt him. Bolotniks had some success. And so you can land on this guy. But it's going to take a really big, durable power puncher, a guy who's durable in himself, but who's a big power puncher as well, who's going to say, you know what, I don't mind going toe-to-toe. Let's see who comes out on top. Because so far, people have not been able to withstand that punishment, that consistent punishment that comes from him. He's almost like, he's a boxer, like I said, but it's almost like a pressure element to it. He's not a traditional pressure fighter, but it's quite intense and quite consistent, his work. It's methodical and it breaks you down. And what can happen is when he tries, one of the areas that there's a bit of a question mark with Buatsi, when he hurt Bolotniks, and he's usually a really good finisher, but when he hurt Bolotniks in round 6 of their last fight, he tried to jump on him and he got a little bit too excited and he was throwing these big wide hooks from a little bit too far out. Okay, his feet were too far out, it wasn't close enough, and Bolotniks did really well to move around and show some great survival skills. And as he's moving around, he's just reaching, and although he's landing, and there's shots that are landing, and you can tell Bolotniks is still feeling them, he's just landing on the edge of the stretch, on the tip of the shot as he's exiting. And at one point, he even rolled his hands as he was trying to throw this shot, so he was playing up to the crowd as well. But he couldn't get Bolotniks out of there, and he gassed. He punched himself out. And between round 6, after he finished that flurry, and round 9, his tempo fell drastically. From round 10, he started to get going again, and I believe it was in round 11 where he got the stoppage. But even those 2 rounds, he wasn't as full on as he was in the first 6. So you have to ask yourself, is he methodical because that's just his style? If he has to go through that barrier and start to really up the gears, is he going to be able to maintain that for 12 rounds? That's a question you might have to ask yourself about Buatsi. Particularly because Bolotniks, as he was able to then, as I said, bring the arm up of Buatsi, he was able to land hooks underneath the elbow. He was targeting that body, and you could see that there were a few moments on numerous occasions where Buatsi was either wincing or bending forward, lifting up his trunks and taking a bit of a deep breath. He was feeling those shots to the body. So it's going to take somebody perhaps who's going to be very durable and be able to take what Buatsi's dishing out, but also the sort of power that could turn it around in an instant. Because if Buatsi's willing to be hit to land his own stuff, and you've got the power to clean anybody's clock, then you might have a real chance. But now you're starting to talk about real elite level type of fighters. And there's no guarantee that those guys would beat him because he's very, very good technically and he can put it on you. And so what I expect to see in this fight, with the really good upper body movement of Richards, who I think's got more fluidity with his upper body movement than Buatsi, even though Buatsi's a lot more accurate and his timing is just unbelievable, I can imagine them at range both having success, landing on each other, it being a really good, interesting boxing match for the first few rounds. What can happen, however, is that as Richards backs up onto the ropes, I know he's a different fighter compared to the days of Higgins, but you even saw it at times in his last fight. He gets up on the ropes and he'll roll a little bit on the ropes, and he's not really throwing back. He can throw back from that position, but shots get through defensively. This is not Floyd Mayweather on the ropes who's going to roll out of a Philly shell and punish you with it. You can land on him. And so I can imagine if he's in at mid-range and being forced to work, and he's backed up onto the ropes with nowhere to go, you're going to see the very fluid and varied punching power of Joshua Buatsi. You're going to see him start to find a home, even in the middle of the ring. If he's able to force him to exchange in anything beyond what is straight long shots, these wide sort of shots that come from Craig Richards, you're going to see some shots landing inside the arc. So if he's going to throw a big wide left hook, I can imagine a straight right hand coming inside that, or a straight over the top right hand coming inside that and landing on Richards. One of the things that Craig Richards does, which is potentially a problem for him, is that when he'll throw a punch, he won't bring it back quickly. And so he might land a right hand and then bring it off to the side, or land a right hand and bring it low and then come back. You know, there isn't that element of, if he misses, there's almost this very fast snap in his arm which will bring the shot back. You know, it's not like a case where he'll throw it and it's thrown and there's that snap in the elbow and snap in the shoulder where it's almost bringing the shot back after the snap. There's like a pull on it because of that snap. That doesn't happen with him. But additionally to it not coming back quickly to his head, like I said, he can take it off of trajectory. When you're up against a guy like Joshua Buatsi, he has that trigger counter. That's a potential real problem for him. Richards could potentially have success of his own with his own straight long right hand over the lead shoulder of Buatsi, because he does have that shoulder quite low, and as he shoots that jab, he's so focused on tracking you like a missile that's locked onto your face, right? You've made the move, you're looking to come inside, he's looking to pump that jab in. Because of that, he'll often be so focused on the target offensively, he doesn't always see that shot come around. So you could potentially see some right hands, just like, I've got the hiccups, man, I'm sorry, just like Kalic had some success, and Bolotniks had some success in that regard. Don't be surprised to see that long right hand of Richards' find a home. But ultimately, I just feel that At mid-range, it's a bit of a mismatch. He's too tight with his technique. Buatsi, he's very heavy-handed. We know Richards is durable. He's never been stopped. But I can envisage this being a very competitive fight for 6 rounds. Maybe people will be surprised as to how much success Richards is also having at range. I expect it to be a competitive fight at range. But then what you'll see, I believe, is Buatsi start to close the range more, come inside the trajectory of the wider shots of Richards, land some big shots and start to break him down. Perhaps get a late stoppage or just win the fight wide on points. We know that Richards against Bivol, he really had to go through some more gears and take some risks, and he was almost content not to. He was content to keep it as a boxing match, which he probably knew he was losing. Are we going to see that sort of thing again? Are we going to see him feel that power and think, you know what, I've given another good account of myself here, I want to stay on my feet? Or is he going to go hell for leather and say, you know what, this is my moment. If I beat him here, it catapults me into a potential dream shot again. So I want this and I'm going to go for it. In which case, I believe you could end up seeing Buatsi landing something big. There is, like I said, that question mark of if Buatsi is trying to take him out and he can't and he gasses, can Richards start to work him? You know, force him to go into areas that he doesn't want to go in, outwork him, and potentially win the fight on points. Who knows? Ultimately, though, I still think this is a Joshua Buatsi fight to win. Let me know what you think, ladies and gents. Give me your breakdowns and your opinions in the comments below. Thanks for watching, everyone. Enjoy the fight. Please don't forget, hit a jab on that like button, a right cross on that notifications button, and a left uppercut on that subscribe button. Take care. God bless.